Coffees. And then kind of like flat, like dead, like instead of...
No, that sounds like a deaf person.
The coffees.
No, auditorily. Guys, sorry to interrupt, man, but yeah, Sam from HR needs to see you guys. So,
for what?
Yeah, you just gotta... I don't know, it sounds serious. It's Sam from HR. Just go
Well, I don't think so. I doubt it. that don't work niet met Joey. That's... No. Hey. No. Go.
Keep the sound with HR.
Go.
All right, gentlemen, take a seat. Stephen, I said take a seat. I know your name's on the show in the front of the building, but you can at least take a seat, right? Take a... Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me this afternoon. The reason you're here is I've been getting a ton of complaints
All right, what's all this about, man?
Yeah, what's all this then, Sammy boy?
Oh, that's Cockney. It's a good region.
It's Sam's favorite kind of knee.
Fist bump.
No. Oh, so that reminds me. If you should do a sketch called Schindler's Fist.
Guys, that's not appropriate.
Get it?
Yes, I get it, but the reason you're here isn't because of your inappropriate Nazi.
All right, what are you on about, boyo? It's Irish.
The accents, they need to stop. Hey, relax, essay. Hey, Holmes. You just relax. Relax, mate.
Mr. Patrick Bet-David, how are you, sir?
Very good.
And how do you run 9 companies? That is something that right away on its face just, sounds shocking.
I watch Jerry Maguire, literally. After Jerry Maguire, I write a 16-page, what we ought to do to take this company to the next level. Nobody responds back. If you don't value these ideas, maybe I'll go do it myself. 3 months later, I resign. I start our own company, PHP agency, with 66 agents. And we grew that from 66 to 45,000 agents. It was exciting, it was great. More and more I got into it. I said, no, I want to talk about this stuff. So then we separated by Attainment with PVD Podcast. We started that, and then boom.
Why do it? What made you say, okay, I want to take this risk, and that's a lot of work?
You don't trust mainstream media. I'm willing to pay the price because I'm going to go out there and do something big. Prove the people that believed in me right, and prove the people that doubted me wrong, and then eventually my dreams are going to become a reality. I love it. I love every minute of it.
Okay, let me put it to you that way. That tea, 60%, 90% complete, right? I don't know. That'll be tomorrow. I'll sit down, an Ash Wednesday on an actual Wednesday with, I was about to say Dan Bongino, with Patrick Bet-David.
Yes.
Some people call him PBD. And then on Thursday, we're going to have a live dual stream event. I'll be doing Dan Bongino's show.
Nice.
Yeah, that the Dago has his own program. He's done well for himself. And then I will be streaming here, but we'll be doing it all from the Mug Club studios.
Yeah.
Notice that? I just dropped it.
Wow, you just
I just
went
dropped it
way
down to
too far.
Dan Bongino height. Actually, I think
Oh, come on.
I think he's tall.
He's a fairly tall guy.
Yeah. I've never spent time with him in person. Anyways, that's going to be... I didn't introduce you yet. Silence. Let me put it to you that way. You have to close your mouth, okay?
That's not bad.
So, now let's run down the stories here really quickly, what we'll be getting to today. San Francisco has decided that they're finally going to clean up their act for Xi Jinping. Be nice if they did it for the citizens of San Francisco. Right. You know what? Even just the people of Oakland. We're also going to be showing you some Hamas child propaganda cartoons, they're equivalent to Sesame Street, just in case you weren't fully aware of evil as well as hilarity in the world. We'll be showing it to you. And spoiler alert, your kids should not actually be watching this unless you want to train them to kill the Udens.
I don't know if I can laugh.
These are real. You can laugh. These are actual shows for the children.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to get into, look, you've been hearing a lot about this, how we have a rise in antisemitism and Islamophobia, right? There's a task force to deal with Islamophobia. Take a guess which one of those is actually kind of true. And comment below, to what degree have you seen, anti-Semitism impact your community? And do you think it's a term that's maybe thrown around too much nowadays? I think that there are anti-Semites for sure. I think that a lot of Islamists are definitely anti-Semitic. I don't think that people who have, legitimate grievances with, for example, the government of Israel, and I'm not talking about the conflict, but it's not necessarily a bastion of freedom and conservatism either. So, I want to be clear when I say anti-Semitism. I mean, like, beating up people because they're Jewish.
Yeah, like chanting "Gas the Jews."
Yes.
Which happened in Australia. I didn't chant that. They chanted that.
To be fair, they were saying that they were funny. They were saying the Jews are a real gas.
I don't think
Context matters.
But also probably bad.
It was all the Aborigine schwarzes. All right, number 2, Captain Morgan. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm fine.
Neck's a little bit better.
A little bit better. I think I tweaked my shoulder as well, but no one cares about that. When you hear this, you know him. You love him. Sunday, November 19th, he'll be at Bricktown Comedy Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You can see his other dates on his Instagram, Josh_Firestine. How are you, sir?
I am good. I'm doing good, man. I'm still a little hungover from my barbecue last night.
You had a barbecue last night?
I overate barbecue last night.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
At MSG?
Yeah, I hope so.
With the Chinese restaurants, when you say don't put an MSG, they put it in anyway.
It's like, no one else is claiming they don't have MSG.
Yeah, I know.
Sounds suspicious.
I had a guy lay it out for me at a Chinese restaurant in Michigan where he goes, people say, and he had like a mild Asian accent, so I can't do it with that. And he goes, people say MSG. You ever eat Lay's? So he goes, Lay's, more MSG in Lay's than your whole meal.
I don't know if that's true.
Go to Lay's.
Yeah,
go to Pringles. Say no MSG.
I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know if I believe him, but
bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. That and sugar. They just put it all in their sauces.
But anyways,
Sounds like propaganda from Lucky Noodle.
he was really upset about it.
Big
He was
noodle.
on a campaign to educate us. Speaking of campaigns, Megan Rapinoe's is over.
Yeah.
Her career ended unceremoniously.
God, I thought she was running for office.
No.
Scared me.
Oh, I guarantee you she will at some point.
Yes.
She ended her career and she was injured into her, I guess 3 minutes into
About
her
3
final
minutes
game.
into her final match.
And here's the thing, she could have been gracious, and instead she took the opportunity. Which, look, comment below. It surprises me. I kind of thought one of the perks with lesbians is they wouldn't be as naggy. But I don't know.
No.
That's my straight, ignorant privilege.
You need a nag with every old bag. That's what I always say.
That was her nickname in college. Was Gladbag. So
No, it's actually sad.
sad bag. No. So she took the opportunity rather than to kind of go through her career, thank everyone who made it possible, to tell you that this means there's no God.
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit. I mean, I'm not a religious person or anything, and if there was a God, this is proof that there isn't. It's fucked up. So yeah, it's just fucked up, you guys. Just 6 minutes in, it's just so bad. Yes, you're good. No way.
Yeah.
It's funny because sometimes I feel like there's no God when I watch soccer, but she here.
The whole planet likes it.
It's exactly. There'd be a flood. I don't know how it counts with lesbians if it's 2 by 2, but I have a problem.
You just need one.
I have a problem. The blue hairs aren't mating.
2 pairs of scissors. You need 4 blades for a
As long as they're practicing, as long as they're safety scissors. Now, this is what you can expect today. She actually, what really bothered me, to get serious for a second, is she caused a crisis in faith for me, because I thought for sure, even God can't stand her, and then he came through.
I mean, I'm not a religious person or anything, and if there was a God, like, this is proof that there isn't.
That's a great effect, guys.
Assault for people who don't know
how arrogant.
The holy book. By the way, if we haven't hit this yet, do we have someone out there doing this today? I realize because someone is sick, the YouTube dump button. If at some point you see this while watching on YouTube,
we'll get it.
That means head on over to Rumble. And I realize the person who usually does it is sick today, so that was not a good lead-in.
Yeah.
The timing on the dump button was perfect, though.
Is it true? Hey, comment below. I'm hearing that other people are starting to do a YouTube dump button.
Me too.
I've heard. Is that true?
Yeah.
Guys, comment below, because, hey, I'm not going to say they ripped it off. I'm glad. I hope more people are doing that, because I want to watch YouTube die. Figuratively. Okay.
Like Megan's career.
Yes, figuratively. Now, but she's rich, so who cares?
Oh my gosh. We're not done with this entitled broad yet.
No, we are not. Oh my gosh. She's going to be like Jimmy Carter. You're taking someone who's naggy, entitled, and now you've just put more time on their hands.
I know. She blew out her Achilles 3 minutes in. Oh no, the horror. I'm sorry.
Well, come on, let's not laugh at her misfortune.
I'm not laughing at her misfortune. I'm laughing at the fact that she thinks because her last game was ended early that there must not be a God on the planet.
Yeah.
There can be no God with this kind of way of going. How about missing the last penalty kick of your career in the Women's World Cup? That one was funny too.
Which I don't understand. I mean, the size of the net, it's bigger than the studio.
Yeah, it happens. It's rare.
There's also a war going on at God's house.
Yes.
And his old stomping grounds. Maybe he's a little busy, Megan.
Yeah. Have you checked out my junior suite?
He's going to help the atheists.
I Airbnb'd it for a while. I came back. It's this.
Sorry I didn't pay attention to your soccer career. There's a couple major wars going on and famine and...
Oh, you can't hit a tin can around in the streets of wherever? That's why soccer is the most practiced sport. You have a tin can, you have an object that you can kick, you can play soccer, okay? Don't let Mighty Ducks 2 fool you. There are not a lot of people in South Central LA playing full-on roller hockey
on a basketball court.
They just can't afford it.
Time. Yeah.
She's fair.
I want to see her knuckle puck. No way, dude. No way.
No.
All right. Speaking of, I don't know, knuckling down. San Francisco. I mean, it's still a matter of fist. So in San Francisco, San Francisco, it sucks to begin with.
It does, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we've covered this quite a bit. You know, the homeless problems there, all of the drugs, the poop in the streets. The good news is there's an app so you can track where poop is most frequently found in the streets.
It's just everywhere. It's just the app is just one big
just very little for poop. Like, oh, wow, that's where the poop is. No, that's where there's not poop.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like Frogger.
It would look like it's like heat. Like a heat map, like you're using thermals. It'd be like Predator looking into a volcano.
Just everywhere. It's like, what do you do?
Now, though, they decided to get their act together ahead of this week's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation event. Mm-hmm. Yeah, APEC is what they call it. But I always say APEC, but I didn't really know what it stood for, like as all the words, and it still makes very little sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Just say the Asians are coming. The Asians are coming. So, Orientals. So now the city is working overtime to clean up the streets.
Well, that's fantastic. Look at that.
Oh.
And this includes everything from deep cleaning the BART system to, pressure washing the poop off the streets of a modern American city in Western civilization.
City leaders are making sure the city shines.
Tourism is our business here in San Francisco, and we need to focus on making sure that
I think wieners is that guy's business.
And
business is good.
Harrison Street off-ramp from the I-80. BART doubling down by deep cleaning their stations overnight more often.
The city had gotten a little bit dingy over time.
Scrubbing and power washing is happening all over the city.
Yeah, the bottom of my shoes look clean.
It's noticeable how few and how few homeless encampments there are on major thoroughfares.
Two things. Having done a little bit of like local news with Nashville because I felt like they were owed one with the manifesto, they have to take it seriously. Yeah, man, there's poop in the bottom of my shoes. This man says his shoes are cleaner now that the streets have been hosed off. Like, they have to take it seriously. And the other thing is that guy in the fedora, he thinks he looks way cooler than he does.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he looks like Frank Sinatra, but he looks like a mascot at Red Robin. The city used to have a little more class. Okay. And you know what? It helps with the algorithm. Hit like if you're glad to see baby steps, less human feces on the streets of the Golden City.
The guys are like, I might look like a douche, but I did it my way.
It was a very good year.
He's a bottom. He did it some other guy's way.
He did it how he was told. He liked it. So San Francisco, they've taken a lot of steps recently, just to be clear. You know, steps you would think they would take on a day-to-day basis.
Normal.
They've just decided, it's like spring cleaning. You ever have to do that in classroom as a kid? We're like, we're going to do spring cleaning. And it's just an excuse to get kids, like they make you clean the gutters and everything. You're like, this is a gross violation of labor laws.
Spring cleaning for hobos in San Francisco.
So now they've decided they're going to start taking steps for the Asians who are visiting, for Xi Jinping to help get the homeless people off the streets. Some steps they've taken is they've shut down some homeless encampments. They've moved some people off the streets. They've added 300 beds to their shelter system.
Overnight. All of a sudden, they have the capacity to add 300 beds to their shelter system when they didn't before?
Well, there's only 2 more sleeps till Xi Jinping.
Oh.
So the San Francisco DA also started a new program called All Hands on Deck to arrest fentanyl dealers.
Sailor boys from San Francisco.
By the way, so it's a real program. All the references are available at louderscudder.com. All hands on deck to now start arresting fentanyl dealers, not to be confused, by the way, with their holiday program. All hands on deck the halls, during which Black Santa delivers Narcan to all the good junkie boys and girls of the world. So that's a...
He's throwing it at him.
Heads will be ringing.
You'll be frozen in time.
I saw mommy smoking with Santa Claus underneath the old Golden Gate Bridge last night.
It's a song about infidelity. I don't like it. Now, when I was a kid, I would get mad. I'd be like, Mom's that cheating whore. And my dad didn't want to ruin Santa. He's like, yeah.
I mean,
come on.
Yeah, one night a year.
Yeah. So what San Francisco refused to do, and this is the point here. Is it funny? Sure. But this is what the left does. It's all about keeping up appearances, right? When they talk about communism, Marxism, so it's beautiful in theory, right? Joe Biden, Bidenomics, they want to put a nice front on, a nice storefront. And you go in and you realize it's just like, I'm trying to think, what would be, it's like Marshall's. Mm-hmm. So I'm just, I don't know. I was trying to think. It's like Talbot's. As a straight young male, I have no interest in going to Talbot's, but they want to put a nice face on it. They're not actually interested in improving the quality of life for the residents. So now, what they've refused to do for years for the residents of San Francisco, they have done in a matter of days or at most weeks for Xi Jinping.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
Don't forget it.
Now, to be fair, context, he went on to clarify what it was that he meant.
Anytime you put on an event, by definition, you have people over your house, you're going to clean up the house.
Got it. That's more clarity, I think.
So the people who live in the house just live in squalor?
Yeah. Everything sucks. And then
so San Francisco is basically Pacific Heights.
It's a hoarder's house.
Yeah.
It's a very underrated film, by the way. You guys can comment below if you remember the razor blade thing that Michael Keaton does. It was nice. So they're cleaning up for China and Russia. And by the way, the people of China, obviously this is different to CCP. The people of China would not be able to discern the difference. I mean, they cook and they cook street food and sewage very often, but they clean up for the royalty, for the oligarchs. So you have Xi, Biden. They're set to meet this Wednesday. Hey, San Francisco, at least it'll be better for a couple of weeks. Yeah. Now, what I hope the people of San Francisco, and if you're out there right now and you live in San Francisco or the surrounding area, please comment below. Contrast what you're living these next couple of weeks versus what you've experienced the last few years. And then what I want you to do is go back and see what information was available. Hey, were there other people in this country saying your city is a cesspool and there's a way to improve it and you ignored them? This can be a learning experience, or you can go right back to the squalor in which you lived earlier and just put your head in the sand and act as though that's normal because it's multiculturalism. Yeah. So ahead of this meeting, too, with Xi Jinping, he made sure that Gavin Newsom, he was the one who requested it. So you can actually, I don't give him credit where, very often, but credit where it's due. Xi Jinping is the reason that San Francisco has been cleaned up. He ensured it.
Hello?
Gavin, hi, we all set?
We're all set, Mr. President. We're all looking forward to...
Is there still poop in the street?
No, we've cleaned that up.
So no poop?
No poop.
No poop? And no homeless?
Right, no homeless.
What about all the gay?
Excuse me?
The gay guy, the gay guy. He's still there, the gay.
Well, we remain open and...
What about Godzilla?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Godzilla, gay Godzilla. Japan says...
No, we haven't had any reports of Godzilla.
Just call me back when you kill all the gay.
They are not the most tolerant people. Oh, by the way, this is something else. There's nothing more to really add to that. Just, San Francisco is terrible. And again, I just hope when people say, hey, we did the best that we could when they talk about COVID. No. You aren't judged historically by what information you made available. Right. You're judged by what other information was available at that time. Has there been information available over the last half decade that would have cleaned up San Francisco? I mean, we've been talking about it. The governor of Texas has been talking about it. I believe the governor of Oklahoma City has been talking. That everyone has been talking about it, but they've done it their way. Hey, at a certain point, results matter.
Yeah, and not 2 or 3 weeks worth of making the city look cool again. Right. Just, maybe do something for the citizens that live there and pay the taxes, not just the visitors coming in.
This is how you're going to end up with another Dirty Harry. Punch some women in the face, that guy. Hey, by the way, this just happened earlier, unrelated, but CNN, their news anchor, Norm Eisen, he was on the screen, and he's a dead ringer for the Muppet Newsman. Did you guys see this? Look at this. Come on.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. The crooked glasses and all.
Look at that. I'm surprised he's not just trying puns like, the temperature's dropping today and thermometers falling. Oh, no. Oh, boy. It's about as believable.
I love it.
Sorry, it was just, I couldn't get my mind off of it.
It's an aside.
It's obsessing over it for the last hour.
So now we're going to talk about, this is something I think is pretty important. A lot of people will say, and by the way, I do understand and I do hear that some people out there are right to criticize some of the exaggerated atrocities sometimes that you hear from the IDF. It shouldn't matter because we have seen footage of women, elderly, and children slaughtered. I mean, you have to be a real piece of human trash to machine gun children. But the idea that, they've been beheaded or put in ovens, you've heard these, a lot of that is unconfirmed. So I understand that criticism, but that doesn't change the fact that Hamas targeted women and children. I think that Americans need to whitewash it in their minds because we live in a time, or certainly an area of the world, where we're not really aware of true evil. We see it every now and then. Like you talk about school shooters, for example. And that happens, and it's terrible, and it's evil. Hamas is an entire army of school shooters executing children, to be clear. Now, how does that happen? How do you have an entire army of people? 57% of the Palestinian people support Hamas, knowing what they do.
Yeah.
It starts very young. So I think this is important for you to see. It's disturbing. It's equal parts disturbing and hilarious, because if you don't laugh, they'll kill Jews. So...
Yeah.
Well, let me start with what was your favorite cartoon as a child? What lessons did it teach? Okay, now let's contrast that with Hamas programming. From 2007 to 2014, Hamas aired a children's TV show called Tomorrow's Pioneers.
This is children's broadcasting as produced by Hamas-run television in Gaza. But don't be fooled by the colourful scenery.
Oh, for a second I was fooled.
Instead of songs and stories, the show serves up political
Donnie
ideology
Darko.
disguised as cuddly animals.
Now, to be fair, you're not alone. Not too many people were fooled, as seen by the 2.6 out of 10 on IMDb. So I'm happy to
Tomorrow's Pioneers. I love the name.
So let me give you, though.
Who's reviewing that? Like, I love the ideology, but the production value is a little low.
I just don't like bunnies.
It was very serious. It's like
I'm not a bunny guy.
Roper. So, two blown off thumbs down. That's what I think. So let me give you the timeline. There are a few characters, and we won't have time to get to all of them. So some of this we'll do exclusively on Mug Club because it also gets even more shocking.
It gets worse.
Let me give you first the arc of little Farfur. So Farfur. Farfur hates the West. Farfur is essentially a jihad Mickey Mouse. First off, it's a gross violation of copyright law.
It is,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know where YouTube is with their strikes on this, but we got struck for doing a parody of the Cranberries, Zombie. So come on, YouTube, just uphold your own laws. So let me show you some videos here. Now you see how you raise an entire generation of people to hate an entire group of people. Here's a clip of Farfur, I don't care, caught cheating in class. And hold on a second. Spoiler alert. Mm-mm. It's the Jews' fault. If you're listening on audio, by the way, and you can all listen on Spotify, Apple, all those places, Google, Stitcher, you're gonna have to watch this because I don't want to ruin it by reading, dubbing the subtitles. That's a real stretch. I had to cheat because the Jews destroyed my house. First, I thought he was cheating off of a Jew, which would have made sense.
That made a lot more sense. But they wouldn't be in class together, Steven.
No.
So. He said the Jews destroyed his house and I couldn't find my notebooks. And I didn't want to cheat.
Yeah. The Jew dog ate my homework.
Oh, so you weren't paying attention in class for the other 3 months leading up to this test?
No, exactly. That's because I was thinking about the Jews.
Oh,
I don't like them, Papa. Okay. So it gets worse.
It does.
It gets much worse. In a children's program, Farfur, he was martyred. Mm-hmm. Murdered by, you guessed it, a Jew who wants to steal. This is for children. This is how you raise an entire generation of people who then just execute Jewish women and children. Evil exists. So he was martyred in this series for children, murdered by a Jew who wanted to steal his land.
The Jewish banker trope.
Yes. Why is the Jew Stefan?
From Family Matters.
That fake Jew has an uppercut on him. Now that was
my God.
This is all the references are available at louderwithcrowder.com. You can click the link in the description. This is for children. And in case you're a bit of a cliffhanger there, in case you were wondering what happened to Farfur after that, spoiler alert, he was old Sand Yellard.
نعم أحبابنا الأطفال لقد فقدنا أعز صديق لنا فرفور لقد استشهد فرفور وهو يدافع عن أرضه يدافع عن أرض آبائه وأجداده استشهد على أيدي المجرمين القتلة قتلة الأطفال الأبرياء.
Now, when you have people here on the left, and this is why progressivism, just for progressivism's sake, it cannot. Toolman, are we still waiting on the next things coming up, or do we have them?
I got them.
Okay, good. Yeah. Progressivism, just for the sake of progressivism, you're moving in a direction. You just say, I'm moving forward. It doesn't matter if you're moving into a thorn bush. This is why the left can talk about othering people here in the United States, and then support Hamas. You just saw a child issue propaganda to other an entire group of people, that every single Jew is a thief, is a terrorist, is a murderer. This is what they show on their PBS. Are you starting to get the picture? And if you think that's bad, by the way, that's just one of the children's shows. It's
true.
You wouldn't believe what was left on the cutting room floor. That's a bad one.
Yes.
And don't forget this one. Yeah.
Pikachu.
Let's go, Pikachu.
Pikachu.
Nothing.
The lightning bolts and the striking and the pokeballing.
Oh, the training all day with the training.
Training on the monkey bars. You can take it. You go monkey bar.
No.
This is the worst program for those who listen on audio. Every now and then,
really- yeah,
like, I did not try and follow. It didn't make sense. Sometimes it does. Not today. So let me give you another arc. This is a character, Nahul.
Ah.
So Nahul the bee.
Nahul.
It's not another.
It's Nahul.
It's Nahul, another bee movie. Nahul.
Now, who do you think you are, buddy?
A Jew?
No, not me.
No, I kid.
Don't say.
It's nice to laugh.
No, I'm just a Palestinian child homeowner.
Yes. How can you focus on your studies when the Jews keep taking your houses?
Yeah, he's like, I have all these properties, and they keep taking them.
So now Nahul the bee filled in after Farfar's martyrdom.
Yeah,
The rabbit replaces Nahul the bee, who gets his fun from tormenting cats and from throwing stones at a caged lion. But Nahul didn't leave the show because of his naughty behaviour. The young viewers are told that the cuddly bee died because the Israeli siege on Gaza prevented him from reaching a hospital.
Well, that doesn't even make
What?
It doesn't even make sense. Like,
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be +1 for the Jews? This Nahul, he likes abusing animals. For those listening, he's like, there's a cat. I am going to kick it.
Yeah.
It's like, and he died because of the Jews. Wouldn't kids be like, well, he was kicking animals for no reason.
Kind of a jerk.
He was kind of a dick.
Little known fact, Gazan children hate cats more than Jews.
Do they hate cats?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay.
So Nahul died because of a Jewish siege on Gaza, preventing him from going to a hospital, as they told you, because they have very poor writing. So we have now a scene from Nahul's death for children.
Administering CPR. Nahul.
But they just ripped off My Girl. They just, instead of the bee stings, they just put the bee in the casket.
This is so stupid.
Suck his honey.
So the kids who watched this, they grew up to be what you now see as Hamas fighters. And of course, they continue with this kind of programming. And I do think it matters to say, look, there's a conflict going on, but the way that they address their opposition, it's not lost to me that you have plenty of Jews in Israel who probably hate the people of Hamas, who probably revile them, who probably do harbor hatred in their heart. And I'm sure that some of them, a Palestinian who maybe isn't an extremist can do no right. That's not lost on me. We're talking about this as a matter of policy and as a matter of programming to children. Can you come up? Can you see the difference? Now, at the same time, Israeli children's shows, they at the very least sometimes are teaching kids about friendship between Arabs and Jews.
عمر هو حبيب أحي طوف بعلم حكوشة تكينوتو يفتحتي لكنه يكولم هاي رجعي حد إخني يكيلو يكولم عمر מדבר רק ערבית
רגע, אם הוא לא מדבר עברית, אתה יכול להיות המתרגם. כן, תתרגם לנו לעברית את מה שעומר אומר, ואת מה שאנחנו אומרים בעברית, תתרגם לו לערבית.
إيه صديقاتي أبيجايل وسيفان
مرحبا, أنا عمر.
عمر أمر שלום, אני עומר.
מחבוב, איך אומרים שלום בערבית?
מרחבה.
מרחבה. כן, מרחבה. מחבוב, תגיד לו, ברוך הבא לרחוב סומסום.
בסדר. סיוון בתול, אהלן וסהלן ביקה في حارة
This little boy looks like Natalie Portman.
It does.
סליחה מופי, אני נובה.
That's me, in Jew.
כי לדעתי הם הפרקו דוני לזיתו ומלטף חסר ניסיון.
By the way, not that I want to be sued by PBS for my former role as the Brain, but the Brain celebrated Kwanzaa, so I'm willing to bet he was not a big fan of the Jews.
No, probably not. That's quite the stark contrast there.
Yeah, if you don't know, you can go watch the Change My Mind, Kwanzaa's Not Real, was created by Ron Everett, who did time in a Los Angeles prison for beating women with soldering irons and pouring bleach down their throats. But hey, you know, it's celebrated by 1% of African Americans and 0% Africans. So now you've seen the journeys of Farfur the mouse and Nahul the bee, you know, and their demise, unfortunately.
Well,
but if you want to see,
rest in power, kings.
Yes, we was kings. If you want to see their friends, Asud the rabbit and Nasser the teddy bear, you'll need to join us on Mug Club later, because I don't even know if we can show that here on YouTube. It would all be YouTube dump button. So loudearthcredit.com/Mug Club. You'll get another 45 minutes to an hour of show. Nick DiPaolo tonight, our Friday show. You'll get Alex Jones on Friday. You get Brian Callen every week. You get the Hodge twins, and it's the only thing that keeps these. It's the only thing that keeps the lights on here, because we are not sponsored by a foreign caliphate. Now, everything we got it.
I think so. Yeah.
Can I one thing?
You can say many things.
Go ahead.
No, okay, many things. I love the because that's a good point. You said these kids were watching in 2007, 2008, and they're military age fighting men.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of this guy going to the battle like, this is for the food.
Justice
you Zionist pigs.
Nahul is always with us.
He will always be in my heart.
That's some shitty Phil Collins ripoff. He'll be in my heart. Nahul.
Jihad in my heart.
It was like Tarzan, you know, the one where he kills all the Jews. I don't think.
That's a different one.
Do you think it's just like they still have like Family Video and Blockbuster in Palestine?
All the plots are changed.
Yeah.
Family Video, they just sell suicide videos.
Oh, no, that was very good. The Godfather, the one with the Jew head in the bed.
Right, yes.
I don't know if that's when it was. All right.
8 Crazy Nights is a different movie.
Yes, it is. There. Yes, it's just a blank tape. So this brings us to look. Obviously, you know, we like to have a laugh, but the whole narrative right now that there's other sidesing stuff, and I'm not going to do that. I try to be very straightforward with you. We all do that. We have our biases here.
Yeah.
Okay. You've heard now, or at least this narrative is what you've heard throughout all the media, is especially with the task force created, this White House for Islamophobia. Yeah. You've heard that anti-Semitism is increasing, and that part is true. We'll have some numbers here for you, but so is Islamophobia.
On college campuses nationwide, Jewish and Muslim students worry the war overseas is fueling hate here at home.
I do not feel safe.
And is that true of all hate speech, Muslims, Jews as targets?
It's true of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred.
As the FBI has noted, we are seeing an increase in reported threats against faith communities, particularly Jewish, Muslim, and Arab communities and institutions.
We've seen a horrific rise of Islamophobia.
Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And certainly President Biden understands that many of our Muslim, Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones and neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities.
Okay. So now you have a task force, right? You have a task force for Islamophobia, which, I mean, there's a task force. Remember when Obama, he was when there was a czar for everything?
Yeah.
Just everything had a czar. So let's go through the claims, because the truth matters. Here's the claim that they're making. Okay. That both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are way up. All right. Here's the truth statistically. Anti-Semitism has increased significantly, and a huge portion of that, comes from the Islamic world, and it's increased far more than Islamophobia. So from October 7th, 2023 to today, versus the same period last year as a comparison. And these sources, just to be clear, they have to come from the ADL and CARE, who are clearly biased because we don't really have these new numbers. Yes, they definitely would be more left-leaning biased.
Right,
ADL probably would register both of them because, you know, hate crimes are catnip to the ADL. But CARE certainly has a dog in this fight, considering that they have been recognized as an actual terrorist organization, I believe by the UAE, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there have been a few different nations. So anti-Semitic hate crimes, meaning attacks against Jewish people, have increased 388%. Then the claim is that anti-Islamic hate crimes have increased 216%. Okay, so those are from the ADL and CARE. But here we have the FBI director, Chris Wray, saying that hate crimes are disproportionately anti-Semitic, and then we'll give you some of those numbers.
What proportion of these hate crimes has been directed towards Muslims, for instance? If 60% were towards Jews, what percent towards Muslims?
I don't have that percentage, but it's obviously quite a bit smaller than 60% by definition. But I think that the point that I was trying to make there, which I really think Americans need to understand, is how wildly disproportionate, if you could ever use a word like proportionate in something like this, that is. 2.4% of the American public, 60% of religious-based hate crimes. This is a group that has the outrageous distinction of being uniquely targeted, and they need our help.
So you have the CARE numbers, and you have the ADL numbers sort of more internationally, but these are now the numbers from the FBI.
FBI 2022 stats is 2022. What he's quoting, because that's the most recent stats that he has. It's closer to like 55%. They're probably rounding up a little bit. And on the anti-Islamic hate crimes, 7.7%. Yeah. So I think the focus here should probably be on the anti-Semitic 60% of hate crimes for 2.6% of the population. Right. That seems disproportional to me.
Well, I think not only is it disproportional, but what matters is who's committing the crime. So in other words, if 55% of the recipients of being walloped, right, hate crimes are Jews, well, how many hate crimes are they perpetrating? I would imagine not as many as the Islamists, who make up 7.7% of the victims.
They tend not to.
I would imagine that a lot of the anti-Semitic hate crimes are being committed by Islamists. There are far more Muslims, just so you know, in the United States than there are white supremacists. It's not even close. So let's kind of look at this, how this is translated into the real world. These are anecdotal. You now have the empirical. Let's go to the anecdotal. October 21st, the Detroit synagogue leader, Samantha Wohl, she was murdered at her home.
Yeah, terrible story.
And the Detroit police said that this was not a hate crime, citing an untouched Israeli flag at her house.
Yeah, literally this woman was found dead on the sidewalk. They followed a blood trail. She had been stabbed several times early in the morning after coming home from a wedding. And the police go in the house, and I kid you not, the only reference to this not being a hate crime, and look, you can't just assume because this was a Jewish leader that it was a hate crime.
Right.
But that's probably where you start, right? Especially
certainly when you're skipping a hop away from Dearborn.
Yeah, exactly, right? With tensions as high as they are. And they're like, oh, hey guys, that flag right over there, I say it's perfect. It's left untouched. That can't be a hate crime.
Yeah. Maybe it was just a hate criminal in a hurry.
Yeah, or maybe just a hate crime. Somebody who hates Jews but really respects the flag.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty flag.
It could be.
It's a nice blue.
It is.
Could be.
Yeah, they didn't have a lighter.
Yeah,
that's probably it.
Could have been that.
They were too busy practicing their stabbing.
Yeah, they were very
down, okay?
Multiple stab wounds sounds like hate anyways.
It does sound like hate.
Whether it's racial hate or what.
And again, I don't think when we're talking, murder doesn't need a footnote. We're just talking about using the left's standard anyway. And in this case, I mean, where's Columbo? When you need, okay, hold on a second. This is a woman who's a leader of a synagogue, stabbed in her home, skipping a hop away from Dearborn, where you've heard the kind of rhetoric, of course, from Rashida Tlaib and representatives there. I've spent quite a bit of time in Dearborn. If you're not aware of the extremism that goes on there, Hamtramck, right outside of Detroit, is the one place, I believe, in the United States, at least at one point it was, where you can actually hear the Islamic call to prayer across the municipality. So it wouldn't be hard if you did a little bit of investigating. Then again, we're still talking about, the police force or sometimes the FBI who had no known motive from the Nashville shooter. Remember that's why it mattered. When people say, why would you release? It's not about clicks. It's about the truth. Hey, would this help Jews in Detroit or near Dearborn better equip themselves to stay safe? Hey, you know what? Maybe Jewish Americans, if they knew that they were being targeted disproportionately, according to Ray himself, maybe more of them will become Second Amendment supporters.
Yeah.
Right? It will dictate behavior, and that will dictate policy. Truth matters. We can give you another example. November 6th, there was an elderly Jewish man. And we're going to show you, just so you know, a clip. But we're not showing you a clip of the man dying or the attack. He was killed in L.A. after an altercation with an anti-Israel protester. Now, the original NBC News headline read, "Man dies after hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California."
Jesus.
And this pissed people off all across.
Well, then the death was ruled a homicide by the Ventura County sheriff.
But that's the thing about this is, like, we talk about this all the time. What did we know and when did we know it?
Right.
They knew from the very moment, because all of the reports coming across on X, and this is where it first kind of broke, like all of those reports were that a protester clashed with this guy and attacked him, and he fell and hit his head as a result of the attack.
Yeah.
That is not a man falling and hitting his head. That is a man being attacked and dying from the attack.
Yeah.
And they chose to cover it that way because they're like, we don't want to make it look like, a pro-Palestine, protester just killed some guy because he held up a sign that says, I stand with Israel, whatever he had, right? That infuriates people because it's the same thing that we discussed with white-black crime the other day, right? Yep. It's the exact same thing playing out. And they could have just said it and been honest, and it would have been fine.
And by the way, I've experienced this.
Yeah.
Not only being sucker punched at the Right to Work rally that took place in Lansing, where they followed me to my car and said, "We will kill you with a gun."
Yeah.
They say it on camera, right? And the police had that.
Yeah.
The police have the gigabytes of all of that, the Lansing PD. I also experienced it, for example, when we had the transgender individual throw a homeless man's pencil case / lunchbox at me. If, let's say, that concussed me, guarantee you it wouldn't have been reported because a lady sitting right next to me who was a leftist said, "Well, you look like you're fine." The behavior is excusable if they believe that the person who performed said behavior is oppressed. That is progressivism. That is Marxism. Let me read it to you again. Man dies after hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California. They're trying really hard to be dishonest shits.
Yeah, and right underneath that, pull that back up really quickly because you want to know if I know that they knew? Right underneath, witness said Paul Kessler was in a confrontation with protesters Sunday. What protesters? What would he, as a pro-Israel person, what other protesters were there? Was he fighting with his own people and that's what happened? No, you have it right there.
This reads like it could be a Life Alert bracelet commercial. Like, I've fallen and hit my head. Exactly. I'm Bill Devane.
But they cover the story. They want you to know they cover the story. It's there. You ignored it because it sounded like an old man having an accident. What a weird lie! Like
I know
that's like, oh man,
trip and fall.
Man dies after committing suicide, jumping from the 80th floor of the World Trade Center.
Right? Yeah.
It's like well.
Oh, he committed suicide. Really? Okay. All right. Nice story.
Is there something more that we need to? Well, look, we assume that the fall is what killed him.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much the fall as the sudden stop.
Yeah. Well, inertia, terminal velocity, they say. No, it's true that look, this is
deception. Yeah.
And this is why, hey, and thank you so much for everyone who supports Mug Club. That you're the ones who made the Nashville Manifesto happen, and you can send your tips if you have other stories like this where the media has lied.
Yeah.
Send them to lwctips@protonmail.com. We will protect our sources with our lives, and we are willing to go to jail to protect them because the truth matters. And this is why, the rule of law candidate, you see that culturally there's a huge shift. We saw this, we've talked about this in the 60s versus the 70s where everyone was flower pot, and they said, we've gone too far. We're too soft on crime. Then you end up with Dirty Harry. You end up with Death Wish. You end up with vigilante films because people inherently know when they're being fooled, when they're having the wool pulled over their eyes, right? They know that. And now and that will dictate their behavior, and that will dictate how they vote. You're seeing it with Black Americans. You're seeing it with Latino Americans. We gave you those numbers. Biden is only leading by single digits. Yeah. And you're even seeing it with Americans under the age of 30. So they're really, really trying hard to control the flow of information. Ironically, it's the left doing exactly what it is that anti-Semites accuse the Jews of doing.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are controlling information. Yeah, the media, are there a lot of secular Jews in media and the internet? Sure. But again, these are secular humanists. The one constant is not that everyone is Jewish in Hollywood or media. The one consistent through line is they're leftists. They're progressives.
Right, yeah.
Now, let's continue. Of course, you have these institutions, not only media, but intelligentsia, college campuses. So now Jewish students have faced incredible hatred since the October 7th attacks all across, this country and, of course, even the world.
Jewish students standing in the Cooper Union Library as other students chant "Free Palestine" outside locked doors and hold up signs outside the glass.
Anti-Semitic graffiti was found on American University's campus over the weekend. The school's president says swastikas and Nazi slogans were found on 2-room doors and inside of a bathroom.
Cornell professor Russell Rickford said at a rally,
"Turtle wax that?"
challenged the monopoly of violence. And that terror attacks against defenseless Jews were exhilarating.
It was exhilarating.
Yeah.
It was exhilarating. It was energizing.
Is that a confession?
Made graphic threats against Jewish students online and urged other students at Cornell to kill them. It's all part of what officials say is a growing threat to Jewish students in the wake of the war between Israel and Hamas.
And by the way, here's something else too. You'll have people out there, and I mean actual anti-Semites, by the way. Just to be clear, I think we've been pretty consistent here. You can say no more money to Israel. We should not be involved. and you're not an anti-Semite. You think that we shouldn't be involved in foreign wars. I understand that position. I think that morally, of course, I support Israel killing them all with extreme prejudice as it relates to Hamas. But I don't believe you're an anti-Semite if you are more libertarian and non-interventionist. I want to be really, really clear because I think that that's something people use, and it's a little bit of a red herring. But here's something else. When people say the Jews control the media, right there, you don't think they have footage of them saying kill the Jews? Of course they do. Yeah. They would rather report on it. This is why we always say, hey, we want to show you. Right? We do a claim and usually show the clip or show the person making the argument so they don't straw man them. We want to steel man our political, our ideological opposition. That person is controlling the information by not showing you what is so shocking, but telling you. And if they then decide to show you a shocking act of Islamophobia, in your mind, you'll think, oh, that's more severe. So that's another sort of sleight of hand that takes place with the media. This happens on college campuses, and it's also been happening outside of the U.S., the entire Western world.
Ask again. Do you condemn Hamas?
That's what we would call a layup.
Yeah. Mostly peaceful protests.
Hamas is not a terrorist group.
Oh, it isn't, man.
First of all, Hamas is not a terrorist group.
Wrong.
Oof. Wow.
Now, to be clear, that's not all pro-Palestinian advocates out there. But again, if there's just a handful of people saying gas the Jews, it's pretty bad. You know, let alone the lady with her AK-47 mutt-dangly earrings.
Well, enough people stayed at the rally and joined in. Like you start here, it's like being at a football game and you see the wave coming. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll participate in this. But you don't start hearing gas the Jews, and you're like, well, yeah, okay, gas the Jews.
Just think of comparing that to.
Don't do that.
Think of comparing it to if someone actually from Mission Control can bring up the Ray Epps situation. Where he's like, we need to go in. We need to take over the Fed. And people say, Fed, nah, shut up,
Yeah,
right?
That's what you do
Those
at that
are
rally.
people the day before January 6th. So not all people, but enough. And if you contrast that with 100,000 people at this rally in Paris protesting anti-Semitism, see if you can spot the contrast.
Actually peaceful.
Savage. Just murmuring. Probably complaining about the weather.
Just murmuring, complaining when they're going to have lunch. At worst,
as bad as it gets.
It's 100,000 strong of mildly annoying people.
Why are there so many people at the protest?
Yes. So let me ask you this. How do you see this playing out here in the United States? And I want to get to some global numbers that I think are important to constantly revisit. But first, in the face of all of this evidence that these people know, just to be clear, I'm a smart enough guy, but I don't assume that I've figured something out that everybody else has missed. I don't think that Kamala Harris is particularly bright, and I think she's a whore. But
nailed it.
I think that they have enough people around them who are smart enough to reach this conclusion, to at least have these data points. Kind of like when Barack Obama would say that women made 77 cents on the dollar. I believed he had access to Google or Bing. That's just a hunch. He knows it's not true.
Didn't even ask Jeeves at all.
He didn't.
No. Jeeves was like,
he web crawled it.
That's a nice reference there.
So in the face now of all of this evidence that I believe, we all know they have, the White House has announced a plan to combat Islamophobia with another whore-led task force.
And so today, I am proud to announce the Biden-Harris administration will develop our nation's first national strategy to counter Islamophobia.
Liar, whore,
This strategy will be
you
a
know it.
comprehensive and detailed plan to protect Muslims and those perceived to be Muslim from hate, bigotry, and violence, and to address the concern that some government policies may discriminate against Muslims. For example, the so-called Muslim ban, which President Biden revoked on our first day in office.
Donald Trump's fault. I just want to remind you, 55% versus 7.7%.
Yes.
They just announced a commission for 7.7% in the midst of the biggest rise in anti-Semitism that I think we have seen in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Also,
Fantastic
to be aware of the travel ban back then, right? We were importing military-aged Muslim males, less than 1% with those first waves. Christians. I don't know if you know this while you're talking about oppressors and oppressed. Over there, under the rule of ISIS, Christians burned alive. Hey.
In cages. Why
didn't we proactively bring the people who were actively murdered and oppressed over first? Now, when we talk about Islamophobia, there's some people who've made some good points. You know, this is kind of what brought me to the dance, and certainly Gerald. Like, if you go back and listen back when we were on radio or just on YouTube before this was a daily show or Mug Club was a thing, the Quran Challenge was one of the first, I guess, sort of viral videos I had done. Then we did the Quran Challenge too. We would do these rebuttals to Talk Islam, who of course supports Hamas now. So we've been doing this for a very long time. And I grew up in an area of Montreal. We had a lot of Muslims at my school. We had a lot of Muslims in the city. And this is a place that espouses multiculturalism, not the melting pot theory. So a lot of people don't necessarily learn the language. They would come to the province of Quebec and they would ghettoize, and I mean this, entirely Muslim areas and stick with themselves. And so I witnessed growing up probably far more extremism than you would in the United States. Because just like you see in Europe, it was tolerated far more frequently. I saw it at my school. When a guy who came in and wore a shirt that I Heart New York, I Plain Tower NY.
Jeez.
This was something that this is not a big deal. He's a kid. Kids make stupid decisions, but the point is you wouldn't imagine that happening in a school here in the United States. So when people say Islamophobia, let me be really clear. I am, I guess I should say, afraid of an ideology that at the very least can be, if you want to say misconstrued, by billions of people on this earth to execute anyone who doesn't think like they do. I think that's a fearful, for me, idea. It's a scary idea, scary notion. You can comment below. I don't think it's an irrational fear, by the way. Like, I know someone who's afraid of apples. That's irrational to me. I don't even think that being afraid of spiders is completely irrational. I get that most of them are non-venomous. I understand that. But the fact is, they're the world's littlest murderers. I mean, aside from microbes. But you get my point. It's a rational fear. Heights, kind of rational, because you die from them. When it comes to Islam, we just say Islamophobia. Well, let me give you a number that may say, hey, this isn't a phobia. This is a concern based on statistical reality. So we have about 1.8 billion Muslims across the world. 8% of them believe that violence against civilians is sometimes justified. Think about that.
Sometimes.
3% believe violence is often justified against civilians. That means that roughly 198 million Muslims support the use of violence
against civilians.
And it's over 50 million on the lowest end who frequently support violence against civilians. Think about that. That's multiple times the size of the population of Canada.
Yeah.
Which probably not the best example because they're an inconsequential nation. They're pretty silly.
Very inconsequential. Yeah.
It sounded like a good point to me.
What was it?
It sounded like a good point.
Yeah, I did my best.
It's a large country in mass.
So 50-something million believe, even if it's just 3%, believe that violence is often justified against civilians. And 8% believe sometimes. Okay. So often means you can pretty much use violence whenever you want. Now, if you've read the Quran, if you follow Muhammad's teachings and you look at what happens with Islamic governments, this is par for the course. Let's use that. Let's contrast that number with the global Jewish population is around 16.1 million. So if you were to say 198 million people believe that violence against civilians is sometimes justified, when do you think Muslims would most justify violence against civilians? Maybe when they're Jewish? Did you watch Farfur? Did you see what they were just showing on television to the children of Palestine? Think about that. If 100% of Jews, and we can't contrast these numbers because they don't exist. You're not going to get a poll of American Jews, Jews in Europe, asking them, hey, how often do you support violence against civilians? The answer would probably be 0. But if 100% of Jews supported violence against civilians, that would still only be 8% of the 198 million Muslims Islamists, however you want to refer to them, who support violence against civilians across the world. So if you want to talk about oppressors and the oppressed, hey, how about we go with a numbers game? It's not even close. But let's create another useless task force for Islamophobia. You can comment below. You can comment below if you just think I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. And again, not all Muslims, not all Jews. I've known some great Muslims here in the United States who appreciate this country, who take a view of their religion where they've brought it into the modern world. And I've known some Jews who are at the very least annoying. But I think the numbers matter. And actually, we're going to continue this. We're over time. We're supposed to keep this under an hour
like
every day.
60.
45 to 60.
We do like 70 or 80.
And we never do. Josh is going to be at Bricktown Comedy Club.
Yes, in Tulsa this Sunday.
In Tulsa.
Yeah,
and speaking of all this, that's right, Tulsa. Tulsa. It's not Bricktown. It's a weird name. But we're going to continue now with the rest of the Gazans Kids Club. I'm curious to see who their like Christina Aguilera is, their JT.
I don't think they have one.
We have a couple more characters that would not be allowed here on YouTube. They would allow us on Rumble, but this is from Mug Club, and we're going to take your chat. So if you're watching on Rumble, click that button right now. You get to keep watching.
Do it.
For another 45 minutes, and it's what keeps all of us alive. We thank you very much, Rumble, YouTube. Wait, piss off.